Question 1. Using information from the provided resources, why is Internet safety so important? NetSmarts, in their presentation, Teaching Digital Citizenship, which is sponsored by Disney, feels that Internet safety is important because it helps create good digital citizens, including teaching users they should not trust everything they read online. Their presentation stresses that students will use the Internet all their lives and should be taught how to be responsible. They should be taught to obey the rules and not go maverick. It is hard to obey the rules if you do not know the rules. Internet safety is about knowing and obeying the rules. Disney has a history in opposing copyright violation and piracy. They make a point of encouraging students to avoid these things. In keeping with Disney tradition, they examine the need not to steal intellectual property before they examine the need to avoid inappropriate content. At least the quality of the presentation is up to Disney standards. Safe Kids, which is now Connect Safety, seems to be a clearinghouse for posts. They do not seem to discuss their reason for existence. In their defense, the need to protect children from sexual exploitation does not need a lot of discussion. The FBI does the best job at explaining why Internet safety is so important. Children and young people are vulnerable. They are subject to exploitation and harm by computer sex offenders. This seems like the original no-brainer. The other sites seem to consider the importance of Internet safety so axiomatic it need not be discussed. Question 2. What is your role as an educator in teaching Internet safety to your students? Society has basically placed an instrument that allows children and teenagers to hurt others and to destroy their own lives. They can do this through ill-considered comments. In terms of destroying their lives, it's like they came to school wearing holstered guns. It's like they kept these guns, which are actually mobile computing devices, with them wherever they go, in school and out of school. As with giving a machine gun to a chimpanzee, odds are they will not use either guns or mobile computing devices wisely. Our only chance is if educators teach them how to use these devices safely. If we do not teach them, a lot of people will be hurt. As I see it, educators have the obligation to ensure children are not sexually exploited if there is anything they can do about it. They have the obligation that students do not exploit each other sexually if there's anything they can do about it. Somewhat less dramatically, educators need to teach others on how to use the Internet as a source of information and how to avoid stealing ideas and intellectual work. In the world we live in today, stealing a man's ideas is like stealing his money. Question 3. Specifically describe how you can teach Internet safety in your future classroom. The NetSmarts presentation contains all the material needed to teach it effectively. Further, it's hard to say how I would teach this subject if I do not know which grade level I would be teaching. Overall, I would tend to stress the consequences of sharing information and the consequences of making inappropriate comments. I would stress that the Internet gives you the ability to destroy your own life and to hurt people who might someday have the power to hurt you back. I would share stories of people who had to face the consequences of saying something without thinking it through. I would compare the ability to be on the Internet to having a gun with you, where you can either hurt yourself or hurt others, and the others might decide to hurt you back. Question 4. What were your thoughts after exploring the NetSmarts website and completing the Teaching Digital Citizen Training Program? My thoughts were it was the best presentation of important information I have ever seen. They covered every topic like a blanket. It was filled with practical advice. Question 5. Do you feel the training program is relevant and useful for all educators? Yes, I most certainly do. It's both relevant and useful for all educators. They might have added a section about how to footnote web presentation, but that's nitpicking, and I do not think there's expert consensus on how to footnote a website yet. I look forward to printing my certificate of completion and the subsequent framing and posting it on my wall. Question 6. Reflect on the main points described in the youth safety article by Ferret, Sadwick, and Villasenser. 2014, and describe what useful information you were able to take away from the article. While I was impressed by their analysis of why cyberbullying exists and the characteristics of the offenders, I feel the list of prevention coping strategies were a lot more interesting. The academic view is a bit too focused on background and theoretical considerations, while most of us are interested in practical ideas. The article does correctly point out that cyberbullying is a problem, but it would be nice to see more emphasis on solutions. Obviously, sexual solicitation is the topic that gets the most press. It does seem strange the author report precise statistics, but also point out that children do not tell anybody when they're solicited. The authors seem to imply that one solution to abuse is to preserve privacy. I am old enough to remember when we were told that the solution to child abuse was to avoid strangers. This was not the solution. Since cyberbullying comes from classmates and sexual approaches can come from family friends, I do not think that preserving privacy is a solution. It may help things, but it is not a solution. One thing the authors point out that it seems like the other sources tended to gloss over is that educators do not determine internet safety. Parents do. Suggestions for overcoming the communications gap are some of the best parts of the presentation. The recommendations, most of which are a call for more research, seem to be the worst. That concludes my reflection on Module 12.